I will start. Good evening. I welcome everyone on behalf of Lotus Systems to this webinar on digital transformation of procurement. Lotus Systems is an interior infrastructure company engaged in the services of design and build, turnkey interior fit-outs, and furniture manufacturing. Established in 2012, the company is ISO and BIFMA certified. From my initial days, we have endeavored to engage and learn from the industry leaders. Continuing the practice, we have attempted to bring forward our discussions on a platform with a series of webinars. In these times when we are all unlearning the old and adapting to the new norms, we put up to the expert panels to share their thoughts and insights. Let us start by welcoming our panelists in alphabetical order. We have with us Dr. Abhijit Sircar joining us from Mumbai. He is the Vice President and Country Head of Corporate Real Estate, Admin and Infrastructure at Sharekhan. He is multifaceted and holds various important degrees and diplomas from pioneer institutes. Abhijit is a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, London, and serves as a board member of Infra. He is recipient to various awards and recognitions and has served in key leadership positions in organizations like ICICI Securities, TNT India, Bombay Dyeing, Piramalls, etc. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining in, sir. We have the Chief Operating Officer of Exicom Tele Systems Limited, Mr. Amit Pandey. He's a TEDx motivational speaker, executive and leadership coach, advisory council member of 3 universities and 4 colleges, global member of Infra, global brand ambassador of Procurement League USA, and winner of 115 awards. Welcome, sir. Mr. Amit Pandey.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. And hello, everyone.
Good to have you, sir. Thank you. We have Mr. Aval Sethi. He is a strategic supply chain and procurement professional, currently working as head of procurement at Embassy Services. Aval has spent 12 years with the prestigious Armored Corps of the Indian Army before joining the corporate world. He's passionate about creating new partnerships, building innovative business models, or turning around businesses on a cost-based sustainable model, which require renewed vigor. He drives business strategies for growth and creates efficiencies leading to cost optimizations and savings. He is an ISB alumnus and MBA from Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, and hello, everyone.
Hello, sir. Also with us is Mr. Sahil Chopra. He's the head of procurement at Ultra Confidential Designs. He's a projects and strategic procurement leader. Sahil is a result-driven professional with more than 12 years of experience in the domain of corporate interiors. He's 4 times Spotlight Award winner by a global interior design company. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for the invitation and good evening to everyone.
Over the past decade, new digital technologies have emerged across all industries. Here we will look at what this transformation means and evaluate the impact of digitalization within the buying process and supply chain management. Considering the rapid acceleration on procurement's digital journey, with the key drivers being cloud computing platforms, associated disruptive technologies, and unified source-to-pay applications. Digital transformation is a journey which can result in disruption and cultural change. The key is to navigate it so that these changes are accepted and wanted by those affected. Digital influences all areas of procurement, both the tangible and the intangible, including negotiations with suppliers. As such, procurement has a particular role to play in the development of digital transformation. So we endeavor today to understand the impact, necessity, and the challenges from our expert panel. I put up my first question to Dr. Abhijit Sircar. Sir, could you please help us to rethink how procurement can interact with digital technologies to overcome business challenges and take advantage of market opportunities? Abhijit?
Yeah. Am I audible? Okay. If we see, as you mentioned, in last over a decade, we have seen that, technology has been emerging and many organizations have been, migrating to the technology platform. And there are various reasons, as a procurement head or a procurement leaders, what lies for us is to create the center of excellence. And technology plays quite a huge humongous role in creating center of excellence. So now when we talk about procurement is not about just buying. Procurement is a very end-to-end process and which has to get into a multi-level transformation, multi-level designing, multi-level collaboration. And when we think of getting into a multi-level activity, human mechanism many a times act as a difficult act as a difficult bottleneck. So when we have seen in last 15 years, we have experienced that how technology has helped us in taking a key decision. Because if I say procurement is all about purchase planning, it is all about supply planning, it is all about logistic, it is all about legal, it is all about supply chain management, and then finally it is all about value analysis. So when I talk about procurement migrating or collaborating with technology, there is a huge potential when we when an organization marries a technology to ensure that the procurement definitely adds as a value, as an enabler and as a frontline function. For example, while we decide to fundamentally decide to come across a situation wherein organization is planning their overall budget for the year. So procurement has a wider role to play, because every activity of a procurement add lot of impact on the EBITDA of an organization. And what happens, procurement, a detailed analytic procurement gives you a very value added facility for your internal customer as well as for your external customers. Now I will tell you an example. I was working with a larger business house around 10 years back. So at that time, each of the corporate houses working under the umbrella of the business house were having their own technology and they were performing with their own technology. Even the procurement was automated. But later on, we decided that collaborating the technology and bringing the whole group under one umbrella really adds a value. Because what happens, if I am talking about myself as a corporate leader, responsible for corporate services, the major spend item which I am managing is basically travel and the corporate real estate. So in case, I have to take a key decisions in the travel management, I have to definitely use technology as a platform to understand what could be my consolidating power. One of the fundamental of strategic sourcing is consolidation. So technology enabled and helped me to consolidate the data for the entire group. When we brought the entire group under one platform, we were able to collaborate and create a data for the whole group, where entire what happened when I was buying for my company, the quantification was not to the mark. What the quantification substantially rose when we collaborated the technological platform, and we came to know what is our spend for the entire group. So technology helped us to analyze not only the spend, but also able to analyze, the experiences of the employees vis-a-vis the, vendors and their services. So while I come for a renewal of any contract, I ensure that, what is the overall experience, for the particular vendor for the entire year. What are my spend with particular airline or hotel for the entire year, for enabling me to decide on the the discounts and decide on the rate for the entire year. So technology help us to judge and evaluate what could be my spend analysis, and somewhere or other I am more authentic in terms of giving a surety to somebody, saying this could be my realistic or a benchmark figure. And based on that, I am able to negotiate a better deal for my organization. So technology has really played a wider role in last 15-20 years. And apparently, as we see COVID has come into picture, the technology has a larger role to play. If I talk about workplace analytic, as a real estate head, it's very important for me to now even bring real estate analytic under, the technological platform. Because for me, it's imperative for me to understand that how the next 1 year is going to perform based on deciding my real estate strategy for another 2 years. So when I have a technology, I'm able to create a platform to analyze the employees experience working from home, working from office, getting into meeting and all, this is how where technology comes into picture, and there where I get a detailed analysis of, their experiences vis-a-vis, my manpower is coming to office and what is their productivity level. So technology has got a larger role to play, and definitely, we have seen there were a lot of initial hitches when we started with the technology. Cloud was considered to be a bit challenging, but now it has really moved to a flexible level. And apparently, important thing for most of the organization is now to focus on technology, but prioritize their requirement vis-a-vis the objective of the organization, and focus on the technology where we can think for a faster ROI. This is what my take in terms of, an organization marriage with the technology is concerned.
Okay, thank you, sir. I totally agree with your ideas of consolidation of data when it comes to the procurement part of utilizing the technology and the digitalization. Thank you for your suggestion, sir. Amit Pandey, sir, I'll come to you. And I put my question to you, sir, is that if you could help us share your thoughts on the digital intelligence approach to procurement, which could lead to the creation of new value proposition. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Uma ma'am, for giving an opportunity. I know a lot of people, and it's great pleasure. I can see everybody is sitting at their home while I'm sitting in my office. Glad. So somehow the work from home has been converted into work from office now. Okay, so I think I agree what Dr. Abhijit has said about consolidation part, and a lot of activities what is happening. And if we see, especially during the COVID time, we have started visualizing that there are a lot of activities which we thought, especially on the procurement and supply chain perspective, we have seen that a lot of things which has become the new normal. So, for example, 3 months back, if somebody would have asked me that everybody is going to work from home for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, will you be able to run your business? It looks like a very silly question around 3-4 months back, but that has actually became a new normal. And we all have seen that yes, it's possible, which used to looks like impossible. If I share my own experience, we run an organization with around 4 factories, 5 offices across India, with more than 700 CR of buying, and somewhere around 250 suppliers based out of India, around 70 suppliers based out of India, and there was so much of chaos, you can say, while opening our factory. So we come under the telecom essential services. So we started our organization opening our factory on 16th of April. That means after the first lockdown one was over, and that was you can say a bigger challenge to open our factories after getting a lot of permissions and arranging the manpower and all. After that, I think the biggest challenge was how to open these around 250 suppliers based out of different locations in India. If you see, there are a lot of things what we started working, and that is where I think the digitalization has helped us in terms of how we can start working towards them. So if you see, every process, every activity has been converted into so-called the paper document to a electronic document. And I think I personally seen that the best way to organize the entire or to manage the entire value chain of the procurement and supply chain during these COVID-19 times. Okay, we had talked about from last 2 years, 3 years, a lot of things about digital procurement in terms of machine learning, in terms of AI in procurement, big data analytics, and a lot of things we have learned. But I think the best part what has happened that this is the time which has actually given us an opportunity to work in reality in terms of utilizing the real digitization, especially for end-to-end operations. On On the other hand, if you see, there are a lot of value which has got created. There was a lot of people who have started thinking that the entire organization, especially the procurement supply chain people, can sit at home and can run the operation. Even, I don't know, but I'm sure a lot of people would agree that when we work from home, we work more. So in office, we have something called, 8 to 10 hours of the time slot. We work, we go back to home, we disconnect to the office. When you're working from home, you don't get that luxury of disconnecting from the work, getting connected to the home. When you leave home, you disconnect from the home, you get connected to the office. It is like a very unique kind of an experience that you are fluctuating your connection versus disconnection while sitting at home, doing a lot of home household work also. We have seen a lot of people, big corporate people, they are doing what you call in Hindis, jhadu, pocha and bartan manna because, the so-called the kaam wali bhais are not coming. So people have become a different personality. People have started feeling that they are becoming some different person. And that is how a new mindset has been created, how to get fluctuated between a call or the late night calls, early morning calls, or so many Zoom calls, MS Team calls, Google Meet calls. A lot of things has happened. And all these things are happening as a part of, I would say as part of the digitization. Now, if you just imagine that the COVID has come when the internet and voice telephony is available, so-called the mobility is available. Just imagine a situation that COVID is there pre, you can say 2000, when there is no internet or there is no telephone, voice, mobile is available. How people would have been like behaving, how people would have been like, working and running their business, all these essential services, all these so-called, Corona warriors, how would they have been, doing the entire communication? I think there is a lot of things what has started happening. People have started feeling that there are a lot of activities what we can do from home, work from home. There are a lot of digitization which we can start implementing, like a lot of processes which has converted. We have never thought a bank will process an LC. For example, a bank will process an LC while sending the document and putting on an email as an approval. Now we have done that, and banks have opened the LC for imported suppliers as well as local suppliers. Otherwise, banks never used to work like an e-sign or all these things. So a lot of things in the entire ecosystem, in the entire supply chain has emerged during this COVID-19. And I'm sure that a lot of value creation which has happened, and going forward, there will be a lot of new normals which will start coming up. That's what the thought is behind.
Thank you for your thoughts, sir. I think we'll all agree to your point of that we have all learned to utilize our resources to the optimum. And like we are utilizing the technology right now, hopefully we will be able to use it in a more better and optimum form going forward. So I'll come to Awal sir, to you. My question to you is that if you could help us share some key strategies which you believe can help to navigate the digital transformation to create solutions which are beneficial to all the stakeholders in the supply chain. Awal sir?
Sure. So firstly, thank you so much, Huma and Lotus Systems for having invited me on this platform. Before I talk about the digital transformation, I'll touch upon a bit on the ecosystem per se as such. So we've seen that with this whole COVID crisis, like some of my co-panelists have mentioned, that these are things that we've probably not visualized, not anticipated, and extended working from home situations or various other combinations that we've been forced to undertake in the last couple of months is something that most of us as people, as employees, were never prepared for it. And also, if I were to step back and look at the organizations, I would try and put these organizations, the way that I look them, into a couple of different buckets. Now, there's a set of organizations and companies who've been better prepared than others to mitigate this entire impact. There have been some companies who've been prepared, but they've only been able to respond to this kind of impact. And there are a large number of organizations and people that I've been talking to in these organizations. And these organizations have been completely scrambling around. And I'll come to that a little later of why they've done that. So firstly, I'll touch upon some of the companies who've been able to mitigate that impact. Now, what was the differentiator with some of these organizations? Firstly, these organizations mostly have been multinational companies. They've had presence in many other regions, geographies, and countries in the world, and therefore are highly matured in their outlook towards supply chain and procurement. They have more developed and they've implemented a matrix around the supply chain risk management and business continuity strategies. The second aspect is that they've been able to diversify their supply chains from a geographic perspective. So multi-sourcing, multi-supplier basis, and key commodities also, or the strategic components of those commodities have been sourced from multiple suppliers. So it's not a reliance on a single supplier. And also when they've looked at inventory strategy for product and material, they've been able to build enough buffer stocks against any supply chain disruptions. Now, obviously, all of this, to do this manually, will take a humongous amount of resources as also time and effort. And therefore, these organizations have some kind of digitization or technology that they've been working with and therefore have been able to mitigate the impact. The second set of the organizations who've been able to respond well are the ones who have, over a period of time, been able to develop very good supplier relationships. And basis on that, they've also been able to create some kind of visibility into the system. And with their supplier networks, the way that they've set up agreements and standards and contracts, they've been able to develop a certain amount of agility in their supply chain. But for the organizations who've completely been scrambling around is because their entire focus has been on how do I minimize my cost. I am happy to work with anyone and everyone who's able to give me a lower cost without really bothering about where is the supplier, what credentials does he have, how have I validated that supplier, how have I hedged my risk with that supplier, and I've driven the whole process manually. I've reduced my inventories on site because I wanted to drive up asset utilization. I've removed all my buffers in the system and any flexibility that I may have had to absorb the system, because I have no technology, I have no visibility, so I can't predict as to what and how much do I need, and which will safeguard me against a disruption which could last for maybe 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months, and so on, and extended periods of time. Now, most organizations have been working on a very traditional linear supply chain model, which today with the COVID crisis is now standing at the crux into transformation into a digital supply network. Now, in a digital supply network, we know for sure, and where a large number of companies are moving is that whether it's an event like a COVID-19, an act of war, terrorism, any sudden spikes in demand, by deploying a DSN, you are able to manage that unexpected event. And organizations can also connect to their complete supplier network, enabling end-to-end visibility, collaboration, agility, and optimization. So it's like you have a digital core in between, and all your other stakeholders and your network is interconnected and talk to each other in real time. So any information you pass through a digital supply network gets passed on to everybody, and you have, and as a supply chain professional, you have complete visibility into what is happening. Now, in the last couple of years, there's this new concept of the Industry 4.0 that we've been talking about, we've been listening to in various conferences and forums and so on. So with the Industry 4.0, a concept of the Supply Chain 4.0 had also emerged. And Supply Chain 4.0 involves around application of the IoT, use of advanced robotics, application of advanced analytics, big data in supply chain management. But essentially what it is talking about is agility in the networks and connectivity. So using of sensors in everything and anything that is possible to automate, and by implementing sensors through your systems. Now, you've heard of concepts of artificial intelligence. Now, procurement processes will become more inclined towards machine learning algorithm, pattern recognition software, in order to, for example, categorize contracts, cost, or unstructured spends and supplier data to create opportunities and new insight. You talk of cognitive computing, for example. Now, cognitive computing uses chatbots, which can automate communication that can be provided for a range of supplier queries. Now, some of the industries like travel industry, hospitality industry, you've already started seeing mass implementation of chatbots in the last couple of months and years. And if you remember, anytime you've actually logged into a travel website or a hotel website trying to book yourself, there is a chat window that pops up, and there are standard questions that are posed to you, and you put in your reply into that chat box, and it asks you your next question, and so on. Now, this is based on cognitive computing, and what essentially does is it automates a whole list of FAQs. And so your standard supplier queries can be answered by using this technology of cognitive computing, and therefore reducing your administrative time and effort that is taken in procurement. Now look at Internet of Things. Now for procurement, IoT will present an increase in spend visibility and a better understanding of the supply and the equipment usage. Now what this does is this will help the procurement teams improve catalog content and spend management by knowing exactly what is being used and what is needed and when is it needed. And the ability to more accurately predict these needs will also greatly improve budget and contract management. Now, again, last couple of years, we've seen certain implementations in terms of smart energy meters, connected thermostats and environmental controls in facilities and buildings across various industries. We've seen motion sensors for knowing where occupants in a building are and on a particular floor. So these all form part of your building management system, which get enabled through the supply chain, because they're sourcing the vendors to be able to bring in these technologies. And it is then based on the operations teams to really run these technologies. Look at the security environment. You have your security sensors in and around buildings, you have your cameras, and all of these are hooked together to a centralized command center, which enables you to monitor your entire environment and are able to also respond and react much faster to the requirements. Let's look at the advanced digital solutions, some of these. Now, these are required to trace supply networks reliably across multi-tiers to fully understand order and supply status. Now, let's talk about e-procurement platforms. Let's look at B2B platforms. So for purchase order management, for catalog management, for budget management, sourcing management, and so on. You have your P2P systems, which streamline the purchase requisition and the PO process. They are able to easily track and manage invoice processing and expense management. Let's look at spend analytics, which are SaaS-based solutions that are available today in the industry. Let's look at auction platforms, and many organizations today are running forward auctions and reverse auctions. They're doing online negotiations and utilizing some of these platforms today. Let's talk of another key buzzword that is very hot today is about blockchain. Now, if you actually look, there's a lot of thought around blockchain. People believe that blockchain is still a myth. Blockchain is still on paper, but there are many organizations who stepped up their game. They're offering solutions around blockchain, and there are organizations who are adopting blockchain technology. Now, what blockchain does is helps record price, date, location, quality, certifications, and many other relevant information. And what it does is it increases traceability of material in the supply chain. Now, from a finance perspective also, it can automate payments, which can be triggered by using blockchain that depends on cryptology data. and therefore makes it a foolproof system. Now, I've spoken a lot about the data, but I firmly believe that data is going to be the fuel of the new economy as we move forward. And data, if controlled properly, can help you understand your lead times, where the items are needed, how much they are going to cost, whether the suppliers have worked in the industry, do they have similar expertise, have they worked with similar organizations, and so on. This data can actually support buyers struggling to find suitable suppliers when the usual vendors are also unavailable. Now let's look at advanced analytics. So all of this data, the big data crunching that we're talking about, all of this would lead to smart analytics. And what it does is it combines artificial intelligence, it combines machine learning, modeling, statistics with some of the other third-party sources. And many of the future predictions like demand, supplier risk, or cost or price fluctuations can be done, will aid in much faster, quicker, and a very clear decision making. I'm also very passionate about another aspect of this whole supply chain is, are organizations able to trace the supply chain beyond the tier 1 supplier? And if I were to qualify, your tier 1 supplier is your supplier with whom you directly contract with. Now, in an organization, you are very, very finicky. You are very, very assertive in putting an agreement or a contract in place with your tier 1 supplier, with the supplier that you're directly contracting with to buy a product, material, or a supply. But what do you know of the dependencies of this supplier? Who is he dependent upon to get or source those products? And those becomes your tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, and so on. But as organizations, as procurement professionals today, when you are running manual systems and manual processes, how much of visibility do you actually have into this extended supplier network? So today there is a very urgent need to identify and focus on your tier 1 supplier risks. Get visibility into the extended supplier network, access to alternate supplier sources, and build a greater diversification in terms of sourcing. And all of this cannot be done without technology. And therefore, a much, much clearer ask in this entire game of digital transformation within the supply chain, and how supply chain can really step up to support the businesses as we move forward. Now, obviously, this cannot be done in isolation. So you have to have a very clearly defined roadmap. And the roadmap that you need to draw out is, firstly, looking at the organizational need and requirements, you need to redefine and realign. The second bit is relook at your entire processes, how you put your governance in place, and then how do you train people to actually work on some of these aspects. Your assessment will be on your people. Your assessment is going to be on your processes. Your assessment is going to be on your technology. Now, when you assess your people, you also have to know what is the digital mindset. So we know that in supply chain, your majority of the people come from traditional roles of admin and support staff. Very few actually today have qualification in supply chain, mostly have learned whatever they're doing on the job. So as we bring in a lot of these technologies, these are advanced technologies. How much of these advanced technologies can be adopted by these people? Do they have a technical bent of mind? A lot of these millennials who come into the workforce do not really consider procurement to be a sexy career option, if I may say that. And do they really want to come in and take up procurement and supply chain as a career option? So look at your people and your skills, look at your processes and your structure, and we have to build in more agility into the whole game. When you look at procurement outcomes, financial performance is going to be your key, is going to always remain on top. But how do you now start engaging with your other stakeholders, your other customers? How will you build relationships? How will you manage your risk? How are you looking at your supply base and your supply chain, your extended networks? And how can you get all of this at a click of a button will become very, very important. And therefore, with all of this now, I come to the very crux of that question is the digital transformation. Now, this digital transformation is keeping all of these aspects of the ecosystem in mind. And very clearly, you are looking at defining your procurement strategy first of all. That's the first step within the organization. Understanding the benefits and pitfalls of digital transformation. So when we say digital transformation, everything may not work. It depends on your industry, it depends on your business, and you have to determine what will work and what will not work. You will have to make an assessment of where you stand today as an organization. You will have to select your right digital tools and the partners who bring these tools on board and will be able to integrate some of these together to give you a seamless operating environment. Get your buy-in from your entire stakeholders, your bosses, whether it's a CEO or the CFO or whoever is the authorized person who says, yes, this is what I want, this is what I need in the business. And then you go ahead and implement as per your plan. So these are my thoughts, Suma. Back to you. You're on mute.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Those were very elaborate points that you have, and you have very rightly covered the entire ecosystem in helping us understand that it's just not about just one procurement, how it can affect the entire gamut of services of the organizations. I think we'll discuss it a little later too, and I'll proceed to my question to Sahil sir first. Sahil sir, my question to you is that how can companies, because you come from the designing companies background, the companies, the designers and suppliers imbibe the digitalization of procurement in the advancement of their strategic business plans? Sahil sir?
Yeah. Before I start, first of all, I would like to thank my fellow speakers for enlightening us on the topic. It was really good listening your viewpoints, and I've learned much from this. Okay, to go back to the question what you asked, I would like to take you back a little back, to know what exactly is the role of procurement and where were the issues in that role. But I would like to explain it in a bit more visual way. So I would like everyone's help in this process. I would like everyone to imagine a heavy bag on your shoulders for each of the activity or the task I'm going to mention. These are the general tasks I'm sure all the procurement team does for each of their project. So to starting with, there's vendor identification and analysis. So this is a very major task. We have to constantly look for new vendors who can give us a better product, a better service, a better response. So let's add one bag for this on your shoulder. Second step comes floating of RFPs, following up vendors for the quotes. Let's add one more bag for it. Third is when we get the response, there are comparative statements, there are analysis of those quotes, what we have received. One more bag on your shoulder. Next comes, and one of the biggest steps what comes is the negotiation and the past order analysis and discussing with vendors and closing the orders. For this, I would request add two more bags to your shoulders. After this comes order tracking, POs, NSVs, profitability, savings. Keep on adding bags. Don't you feel a mountain on your shoulders? To make things more complicated, traditionally procurement has been human-based and paper pen-based activity, which led to it was time-consuming. The tasks were tedious. There were errors. There were not much transparency. So which all led to, you could say, frauds, bribes, losses to the companies. It was endless. So because of which the procurement was stuck being more of a tactical function of an organization. And many a times or many companies didn't look at it as a core function or the strategic function. So as I mentioned, it's a mountain on your shoulders. But why to carry this mountain on your shoulder when you can climb this mountain? So digitalization has helped us climb this mountain with the help of error-free data, with the help of data analysis, with the help of transparency. So since you could say last 5-7 years, not long back, these cloud-based data management systems, ERPs, process optimization, artificial intelligence, they have fundamentally changed the role of the procurement in an organization. They have made procurement move from the paper pen kind of a task to more of a digital activity, and which has brought a ripple effect in in every organization. So it has freed the procurement team from the, I could say, low tasks, which were data management, data entries, and also data related activities. And it has helped improve the efficiency of the team. It has speed up the work and accuracy of the work. Now coming back, so all these changes have brought in the procurement to more of a strategic role in the organization. Procurement has come up into the heart of the strategy of every organization. So how this has helped each and every function of the organization. For the companies, yes, it helps them reduce their risks because we have enough data to understand our issues, problems. It helps them spend smartly. It helps greater innovations in the organization, and it helps them create more strategic alliances outside the organization with the vendors and also inside the organization. Coming back to the supplier side of the things, suppliers we are or suppliers are able to get a better, you could say, strategic partnership is happening nowadays. Companies are able, or with the help of these technology, procurement teams are able to identify who are their partners whom they should nurture more and whom they should create their relationship better. Also, the communication has become more faster, better, and which has helped both the sides of the table to take the decision faster and more apt. Now, coming back to the design team or the other functions, I would say all the internal functions. With the coming of AI, the complete organization has come under supply chain. With these ERPs and all those artificial intelligence, we are able to extract the data from each and every function, starting from design team. So who are the vendors who are the preferred vendors, or who are the vendors who are working closely with them, or who are showing their intent to work with us. Coming back, then going to the accounting, who are raising of invoices, processing of payments. So keeping all the functions of the organization, we get a wholesome data which can be used to create our further strategies to have better engagements, and which helps the organization as general to grow together. Now, yes, I've talked about all the pros, but yes, there are not cons, but these are more of a challenges. With so much of data, the security of data is a major concern. You have to constantly upgrade the skills of your team members, because yes, the technology is growing at a really fast pace. So you need to constantly update your human skills. Secondly, lastly, I would say there was a human aspect to the procurement, which we can never remove, which artificial intelligence is, you could say, we can't rely totally on the artificial intelligence. There has been an human aspect to procurement which will remain and which we cannot avoid. So before I end the thing, I heard somewhere a saying that when you change the way you look at the things you look change. So yes, with the digitalization, companies have started to look at the procurement function as differently, in a different way, as the more strategic function. So same way the procurement is changing. So that's how I would explain it. Uma, back.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Those were very relevant suggestions. Aval sir, I'll come to you. And I would, because you have given us a very elaborate description of the entire ecosystem and how digitalization can help and take us forward. Something which was also touched by Sahil sir is that where is the human aspect, which all these digitalization going ahead, do we lose the human aspect? Do we, like you mentioned, that there are two buckets of companies who have been able to succeed in these times? One which had a great planning, irrespective of the large geographical presence, and secondly, who had better vendor relations. So where is this, and how will the vendor relationship on the human aspect will be tackled with the digitalization in corporation? Aval sir?
Sure, Uma. So, if you look at a couple of years back from where we started, the first step that we took was trying to look and automate some of the basic things that we were doing in procurement. So, for example, how do we raise purchase requisitions? How do we issue purchase order? How do we link that to supplier acceptance, work completion, and their payments? That was the base. And with that, you had the advent of the enterprise, the ERP platforms coming in, which was just to automate the P2P process, right? Now, at that stage, what you had was throw a person on a problem. So every time you struggled with getting work done, you hired one more person. So it was a problem of many in the sense that you had low skilled resources and you had many such resources to tackle the very fundamental requirements of managing your requirements and your data. As we started to automate some of these aspects, today you're looking at upskilling some of these resources and getting to the next level. Then you had certain sourcing platforms. So internationally, something like an Ariba stepped in, something like a Bravo Solutions, or which is now renamed as Jagger, that have stepped in. You have Hyperos, you have Coupa, you have under many other vendor registration portals. So in bits and pieces, you started having technology which was addressing one aspect or one or two aspects of the entire supply chain ecosystem. But today, as we've becoming more and more advanced and technology is coming up more and more with artificial intelligence and some of the aspects that I've listed out, it's not that the human element is getting removed from the technology, but it's all about what I say the cognitive aspect of how do you skill up the people to deal with the higher end of the spectrum and leave the basic fundamentals to technology and to the machine, which are repetitive tasks, which is something that at a click of a button can be just pulled out and issued out. So I know organizations, for example, who are using bots today to automate their PR to PO process. So once a PR is raised in a system, the bots automatically pull data, populate into a PO metric, the PO gets created on a particular vendor and pushed in the system, and the supplier receives the PO. So your only intervention in the entire process is that first step when a requester is raising a PR, and thereafter the end result is the supplier getting a PO, and there is no other human intervention in between. Now that is a repetitive task, but you don't require a human sitting and doing that. You require a human to say, which supplier, who's my better supplier, who's given me quality, who's given me consistent delivery, right? That is my skill of validating a supplier, of establishing that relationship with the supplier, of who I have confidence on, is where that human interface comes in between. So when you look at supplier relationship management, when you look at supplier collaboration, when you look at supplier innovation, I am working in an organization where I could potentially end up with hundreds and thousands of suppliers, but will I be able to manage those number of suppliers? I humanly cannot. It is just not possible. So I will have to make sure that I only have suppliers which allows me my time and my bandwidth to really build relationships, build a bond with these suppliers, ensure consistent delivery and quality from them. And therefore I work very closely with them to really build them up, build their capability. So one supplier can take on multiple aspects of things rather than have different suppliers for different aspects of it. So that's the human element which will need to be dovetailed, which will need to be integrated with that technology, where low-end work can be delegated to technology and high-end thinking skills, critical thinking and critical collaboration will remain with that human.
Thank you, sir. I think, thank you, sir. So we have Dr. Abhijit Sarkar there, sir? Yeah. Okay. So like we were discussing the human aspect being missing in the digital space, and what Awal sir rightly said, that it is for the initial purpose, if I'm not wrong, sir. So it is to screen out maximum people and finally find the right supplier base for the organizations. And sir, you spoke about the value of analysis and planning with the digital. So how would you like to incorporate the human aspects of into the planning of the digital procurement space, sir?
See, whether we talk about technology without human intervention, none of the act can get completed. And if we are talking about migrating to a technology, we are not still in such an advanced stage like what we can see in the other countries, that technology will drive everything. So the first, the major challenge what we have in India is, IoT is in place since last 15-20 years. It's not a new technology, but in spite of that, in last 15-20 years, we have hardly few percentage of people who have really understood what is the ability of IoT to perform. And apparently what happens, if you don't have a manpower to deal with technology, if you have a, see, because it's a value chain at the end of the day. When you talk about technology, it is not only the procurement department who implements it, it is basically the overall stakeholder who becomes a part of that technology for a concluding result. So as of now, when we talk about technology, we cannot 100% eliminate the human intervention. And at the end of the day, certain acts are required to be performed by your own people. So somewhere or other, you will definitely require the intervention of man. At the end of the day, you cannot eliminate human intervention completely. Like, I will tell you an example. You have a robot who is managing a front end of an hotel, but we don't have a tendency of robot uh, greeting us in the reception, because that's the mindset. Somewhere or other, we need a human intervention to be there, and we want a human to greet us, not a machine to greet us. So somewhere or other, we cannot say that technology will take over completely, but yes, human intervention will gradually start getting diluted, because major activity will be done by technology. But we still are long behind reaching a situation wherein technology drives the 90% of thing, and 10% is being just supervised by human. So we are long way ahead, behind that. And yes, definitely we will have a situation wherein one procurement hell will have four core member and 10 robots who are reporting to him. So we don't see that the situation will not come. But then yes, it will take time for because it's not only a mental acceptance, but there is a lot of emotional and other intelligence involved in this. So human intervention as of now, I think, will continue to be there, and it will definitely, it cannot be eliminated as early as we think so.
Right. Thank you, sir. Amit sir, do we have you with us right now?
Yeah, ma'am, I'm here.
Yeah. So, so your last words on the human aspect and human intervention into the digital procurement space, sir.
Okay, so somehow personally, I'm not too much into so-called the technology favorable person. I'm more like a process driven by humans. So two things what we need to understand and believe is that humans are the one who has created the technology. Technology is not the one who has created the humans. What is happening on the name of the growth is that uh, we are actually getting attached and getting too much involved with so-called the technology. And the best part is that we all are now pretty matured enough, because we have actually seen the era which was like non-technological era. We all had wonderful childhood memories before the technology took over. But think about the people, think about the generation, whether it's Gen Y or Gen Z, who have taken the birth and the time they started, feeling everything around them, the technology was there. And that is also impacting a lot on their human mindset. a lot of problems are also getting created because of the technology, which people have started feeling it. A lot of talks are happening globally on how to take care of those problems, which are basically getting created by the technology. So the biggest problem what globally technology people have agreed is that deterioration in the patient's level of a human mind. So because now we are like just a click away, and all the any questions. If I'm sending a WhatsApp message, the moment it becomes blue tick, I'm expecting the response immediately. So that is how the patient's level is actually getting deteriorated from my mind. As far as the I think the organization is concerned, organization can define more as a part of a human driving the technology. If any technology, if the humans are passionate, if people are empowered and people are like driving the entire process, technology becomes just an enabler. For example, a lot of companies still they are like very low in terms of the technology, uh, advancement. But if we see their process and if we see their result or KPI or the like Mumbai Dabbawalas is like one of the biggest example globally. That zero technology, but they have achieved more than better than Six Sigma level. So it's not only the technology. Technology is more as an enabler. If we try to help the people to get transformed with the help of the technology, technology is a wonderful thing. The moment we start seeing technology as a replacement of the human being, we tend to go into a wrong direction. So that's what my takeaway on the people versus technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think mostly we will all agree to a process-driven, humanly incorporated technology, adapting adapting a technology which is more human-driven. Again, for the procurement, I'm getting a lot of messages, LinkedIn messages, and all because people are not able to access this. I don't know what's the blockage is. I'm very sorry for the technical glitch if it was, because we were over there, and I'm getting all the messages that they are not able to log in and they want to hear. Nonetheless, we'll be putting it up the link right now. So coming back to what we were discussing is, sir, do we all agree that we do want to go ahead from a linear to a digital procurement, but with more human interventions? Aval sir, do we agree to that? You like to add more in that?
Yeah, so I think the way that I look at it is we are heading towards, so I spoke about the concept of supply chain 4.0, which essentially emanated from the industry 4.0. But with all the technologies that we are looking at today, we are actually moving to an environment of a supply chain 5.0. And what 5.0 is, it's a collaborative work between humans and robots, which we call the cobots. And humans and robots will collaboratively work together. So rightly, as pointed out, and we've all discussed, that it's not that the technology is going to replace the humans altogether, but it's how humans and the technology can work together collaboratively. There will be some aspects which technology will take over, and there will be some aspects which will be driven by the humans. But also to my point, and I think I saw one of these questions being posted by the attendees, is what's going to happen to us as people, and will it create redundancy in our jobs and so on. So the way that I would say is, we've all gone through school and college. And what would happen if we had stopped, say, beyond class 5? What would have been our opportunity? Restricted opportunity. What if we had progressed and studied till class 10th? What would have been our opportunity? Then what had we just done our graduation, our basic graduation, and stopped? What would have been our opportunity in terms of employment, right? What if we had done our MBA? what would have been our opportunity? What if we had done some post-graduation courses, more professional courses, what would have been our opportunity? So if you look at the environment today, learning is lifelong. And if our environment is moving towards more and more technology, so today we are using mobile phones, we are using laptops, we are all sitting at home and still we are on video conferencing and chat. Now, if you ask our parents or our grandparents to use technology, they'll run away from it, won't they? They will definitely, because they're not used to technology. We have become used to technology because we've been forced into it and are using technology. Look at the millennials who are coming in, the younger generation who are coming in right from the day go, give a phone to a child of 2-year-old. He'll know exactly how to download apps, how to open apps, how to play a game and so on. It's because of the adoption. It's because the mindset is so changing so fast. And if we say that, no, we will not change, we will not adapt, we will just stick with what we have, but jobs should remain open to us, we should get more and more opportunities and all of that, it's not going to happen. Believe you me, it's not going to happen. So it's on us, it's for us to be able to upskill ourselves, look at new roles. Because another aspect that I keep telling people is a lot of the jobs that we are doing today probably didn't exist 10 years back. And some of the jobs that we will, and a lot of the younger generation will be doing, may not even exist today. These are new roles that are coming up. You've heard of data scientists today as a job profile and a job role. You're hearing of so many new terminologies in your workforce that are coming up today, which never existed. So it's not that they are removing the human element or the human workforce, but there are new roles. You will have to skill up. You will have to get ready and prepared to handle those workforce. What is it that it will take to get into those roles? You need to study. You need to skill up. You need to educate yourself and so on.
Right. Thank you, sir. So we have different tangents coming in, which is always great for a conversation. But
I would like to add in here. I'm sure I've heard Aval sir, Abhijit ji, Amit ji. They have already explained this thing in a very beautiful way. So I would like to add one or two things only. Yes, artificial intelligence and robotic processes or automation can make a big difference to any organization's profitability, productivity. Yes, but at the heart of every organization, there lies a group of people who run the organization and this automation. So yes, this automation will help us do our low value tasks, do our repetitive tasks. But yes, we'll be using these you could say technology to get the data. But then we'll be having the human touch. We'll be having the human intervention to have that strategic relationship and to have that vendor engagements.
I think that's what we should all agree to. Yeah. Okay. So last words coming from you, Abhijit sir. Anything you would want to round up for the last?
Huma, can you repeat again? I didn't get you.
Okay, sir. So you must have heard what Aval sir and Sahil sir were saying regarding the human, considering all the digitalization we'll be going ahead with, but at the center, at the heart of an organization will remain the human interventions. So your last words before we wind up, sir?
I think, Huma, when I started the conversation on this subject, I have mentioned that, the technology is going to emerge, but at the same time, we are not going to see, the elimination of human intervention. There will be job loss, but at the same time, there will be new job created. And it will not be too long. If you see in next 2 years, post-COVID, we will see, the technology taking over a lot of roles, and accordingly, there can be a lot of job cuts. At the same time, there are new jobs which are created. So now everybody has to, transform themselves, adapt the change if they want to stay ahead with the trend, because it is not a threat, but it is an opportunity for people to learn. But the situation is, if you cannot learn, then you are a threat to yourself. So technology is going to go, because COVID has created a different paradigm shift. And till COVID, everybody was only talking technology, but implementation was never happening in the scale it used to be. But now post COVID, every organization has really felt, the flavor of technology, and they have understood that once we move to a technology, there is a huge amount of, operational cost can be saved and the profitability can be enhanced. So in certain cases, definitely organizations' first priority would be now to focus on, technology, and to ensure that at least the future planning is with a strategy where there is more technology and less human. But at the same time, human intervention cannot go, because technology cannot manage technology. It's the human who have to manage a technology at the end of the day.
Right. Technology being managed by humans, that cannot be denied. So last words coming from you, Amit sir. You're there with us? Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. So I think Dr. Abhijit has actually said one-line statement, which I think absolutely agree. So technology can't be able to manage the technology. It's all human who are going to manage the technology. End of the day, I think we have to do a lot of so-called the respect and care for the people. And technology is, as I said earlier, is just let's use technology as an enabler. So there is a life without technology also. We all should understand that. And I think COVID-19 has given us a lot of that message also, that on the name of the technology, we should not start spoiling our nature. Otherwise, something like this will come and take care of the nature. You see, how the sky is becoming a little blue, and the rivers are becoming more clean. It's just a matter of that. I think we all have to take care of the nature as well as while using the technology at different platforms. Thank you.
So any final words, or should we be winding up now with the time constraints? Right, we're good to go.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Once again, I would like to, individual questions. We have received few questions which are directed to individual people, and I will be forwarding those to the individual panelists and receiving their answers. We'll put it in the report format, and we will put this link in the invitation links which we have sent, because a lot of people couldn't join. They said that they are facing some technical issues. The link is not working. So we will be sending the links and whatever questions to the panelists. So once again, I would like to thank everybody for taking their time out and sharing some in-depth insights and suggestions with us. I just hope that all this gets cleared up soon and we can actually meet in person. Thank you everyone for joining in. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.